From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello and welcome to Firstpost America, your global pit stop for the latest news and headlines from the United States and around the world. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. We'll get you a roundup of the day's top stories, but first, let's take a look at the headlines. The United States proposes a draft resolution at the UN Security Council that calls for a temporary ceasefire in Gaza, but also warns Israel against its pending offensive in Rafah. A Moscow court upholds detention of U.S. journalist Evan Gershkovich until March 30th. The Wall Street Journal reporter was arrested last year and charged with espionage. A Haitian judge indicts dozens over the alleged involvement in the 2021 assassination of President Jovenel Moise, including his widow, as the Caribbean nation spirals further into crisis. And Taiwan calls on Beijing to be rational after a deadly incident involving a Chinese boat and Taiwanese Coast Guard, with the island's premier vowing to protect its waters. And finally, aircraft aerobatics fill Singapore's skies as Asia's biggest aviation show opens. This as the industry grapples with a rebound in post-pandemic travel demand amid severe supply constraints. We begin today with a focus on the United States presidential race. Though not the two top contenders you might expect, President Joe Biden or Donald Trump, but with Republican presidential longshot Nikki Haley. Speaking at an event, Haley expressed concerns about the Republican Party's struggles to connect with the youth, stating that TikTok is not the solution. She criticized Biden for using a TikTok video to appeal to younger voters during the Super Bowl. And she even criticized former President Donald Trump for not delivering on his promise to ban the app. Calling the Chinese-owned app dangerous, Haley said the U.S. cannot be the last nation to ban TikTok. In fact, going so far as to question why the United States hasn't already banned the app when other nations, such as India and Nepal, already ridded their respective countries of the social media platform. She went on to say that TikTok is hurting the children of America, going so far as to accuse TikTok's CEO of ties to the Communist Party, and said the app allows China to not only access personal data, but is using the app to engage in psychological warfare. Now, this is not the first time Nikki Haley has launched such a tirade against TikTok. In fact, in November, she claimed that pro-Hamas videos on TikTok made young Americans more sympathetic, not less, to the Palestinian cause. She also claimed that users shared Osama bin Laden's letter written after the 9/11 attacks during the early days of Israel's war in Gaza. But she did not stop with her attacks on TikTok. In fact, she also aimed her fire at the presidential candidate Donald Trump in the closing days of her South Carolina Republican primary contest. In another campaign stop, she reminded voters of the legal woes facing Donald Trump, saying that chaos follows the ex-president everywhere he goes.
And the night of the New Hampshire election, if you were watching, Donald Trump was unhinged. He didn't expect me to get 43%. He talked about revenge. He criticized my dress. Then the next day he went and he said anybody that supports her is barred permanently from MAGA. Then he had a court case that he lost, and he went on another rant, and he talked about being a victim. Now, he said himself he's going to spend more time in a courtroom than on the campaign trail. We can't win like that. That's the problem, is we all want to see our country turned around. But in order to turn our country around, you have to actually win. I was proud to serve America in his administration. But the truth of the matter is, chaos follows him. Everywhere he goes, chaos follows him. And we can't be a country in disarray and a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos. We won't survive it.
Now, despite no primary contest wins, the former UN ambassador is honing her argument that she is the lone remaining candidate in this race who can actually unite Americans. Now, of course, that could be a tall order for her considering Trump's mammoth lead in the primary contest so far. But Haley, with no clear path to the Republican nomination, has refused to quit. In fact, she has said that she is in this for the long haul. The former South Carolina governor is mounting what could be her last stand in her home state of South Carolina, where she is trailing in the polls by double digits. South Carolina holds its primary on February 24th. And now we turn to the Red Sea, where the Houthis have launched a barrage of attacks. The Yemen-based rebel group have struck at least 3 commercial ships in the Gulf of Aden. 2 of these ships owned by American firms, and the 3rd ship having British owners.
Injustice endured by the Palestinian people, who are subjected to aggression and siege in the Gaza Strip at the moment, and in response to the American-British aggression on our country, the naval forces of the Yemeni armed forces, with the help of Allah, carried out 2 special military operations targeting 2 American ships in the Gulf of Aden. The first ship was named Sea Champion, and the second ship was named Navis Fortuna.
The Rubymar is the latest ship to come under heavy attack by the Houthis. In fact, the Iran-based Houthis have struck Rubymar with multiple missiles, leaving the commercial cruiser on the verge of actually sinking.
The results of the operation were as follows. The ship was severely damaged, leading to its complete halt. Due to the significant damage suffered by the ship, it is now at risk of sinking in the Gulf of Aden. We took care during the operation to ensure the safe evacuation of the ship's crew.
The British vessel was traveling from the United Arab Emirates to Bulgaria when it was struck by the Houthis and damaged beyond repair, forcing the crew to abandon ship. This has now become one of the most damaging attacks on a commercial ship by the Iran-backed rebels so far. The British government has condemned the attack, calling it completely unacceptable. However, it just wasn't commercial ships that the Houthis went after. In fact, they also claimed responsibility for shooting down an MQ-9 Reaper drone that they say actually belonged to the U.S. military. Yemen state media showed fragments of a drone scattered across the beach, and the Houthi rebels are certain that it's an American drone. However, the Pentagon says that it is still investigating these claims that have been made by the Houthis. And meanwhile, the Houthis say that they will undertake more, not less, attacks in the Red Sea.
The Yemeni armed forces affirm their full right to take further military measures in the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea in defense of our people, country, and nation, and in support of the oppressed Palestinian people. They emphasize that their operations in the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea will escalate and will not stop until the aggression ends and the siege on the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip is lifted.
Now, these attacks come just 3 days after the U.S. government reclassified the Houthis as a terrorist organization. And the latest attacks comes on the very same day that the European Union launched its own naval protection operation in the region. But despite a heavy military presence of Western powers, the Houthi rebels are attacking at will. And as the attacks increase, trade across the Red Sea continues to plummet. From hijacking commercial ships to missile strikes on tankers, the Houthis are openly thwarting international law with no end in sight. And the larger question remains, Can anyone rein them in? And now a tale of two friends, BFFs. The relationship between them is only getting stronger despite rising geopolitical tensions, conflict, and wars. We're talking about Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. The Russian president has presented his North Korean counterpart with a luxurious gift, a Russian-made car for Kim Jong-un's personal use. Now, Pyongyang says the car was delivered by a Russian delegation, and it was Kim Jong-un's sister, Kim Yo-jong, who thanked Putin on her brother's behalf. This comes as another sign of warming ties between the two countries that the West has deemed to be two pariah states. But it comes as no surprise that the details of what kind of car it was, how it was transported, and what special protective measures it offers remain a secret. In fact, it was in September of last year, while visiting Russia's Far East, Kim Jong-un inspected Putin's Sanat limousine. He was even invited by the Russian leader to climb into the back seat. Putin's gift potentially violates United Nations sanctions imposed on North Korea that ban the supply of luxury goods, including automobiles, to North Korea. But these sanctions haven't been able to hit Kim's collection of automobiles, which has only been growing over the years. In fact, Kim is believed to be an avid automobile enthusiast. The North Korean leader reportedly travels in super luxury cars ranging from Mercedes limousines, a Rolls-Royce Phantom, and a Lexus SUV. However, none of these brands operate any dealerships in North Korea, but they are means to import through multiple channels. In fact, Kim Jong-un is often seen flouting his black luxury limousines in open defiance of UN sanctions. The armored black limousines appear everywhere with Kim Jong-un. And these cars are top-of-the-line Mercedes-Benzes like the Maybach S62 and the Maybach S600 Pullman Guard, which cost from $500,000 to $1.6 million each. Now, according to the Center for Advanced Defense Studies, high-end luxury goods from the West make their way to North Korea's elite through a very complex system which includes port transfers and secret high-seas shipping. The center also reported that Pyongyang has imported more than 800 luxury vehicles from 2015 to 2017 alone, with the majority originating from, you guessed it, Russia. In fact, sanctions experts say that North Korea uses similar techniques to obtain dual-use technology for its nuclear weapons program. And Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un, who are increasingly isolated on the global stage, have further cemented their ties since Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. Russia has also fired North Korean-supplied ballistic missiles in its ongoing war with Ukraine. And the United States and its allies have expressed tremendous concern about growing military cooperation between Pyongyang and Moscow. In fact, Washington has also been becoming increasingly wary about the long-term implications of what this new strategic partnership could mean for the two rogue nations. And now from North Korea, we turn to its southern neighbor, where hundreds of doctors staged a massive walkout in South Korea's capital city of Seoul. The doctors are protesting the government's plan to hire more trained physicians. South Korea has one of the lowest doctor-to-patient ratios among major economies, and the government wants to change that. Now, however, more than 6,000 doctors, upon learning of this plan, have submitted their resignation, sending the country's healthcare into mass chaos. There's panic among patients as surgeries have been canceled and growing strains on treating the elderly. Here's our full report.
South Korea is facing a healthcare crisis. Surgeries have been delayed. Hospitals are turning away patients. Out of the 13,000 doctors, almost 6,500 doctors have submitted their resignation. These are junior doctors and residential students at hospitals. They are protesting against the South Korean government's plan to introduce more trained physicians into the system. But the government says that the medical industry is currently facing a shortage of professionals.
The demand for medical care has been rapidly increasing, but the needs cannot be met. Especially the number of doctors in essential medical principles has drastically decreased, and it led to the collapse of essential medical services in rural areas. Such a collapse means that the safety and health of people in these areas are now in grave danger.
South Korea has 2.5 doctors for every 1,000 people. That's among the lowest doctor-to-patient ratios among major economies. The government wants to induct 2,000 doctors by the year 2025 and another 10,000 doctors in the next decade. This is the root cause of the ongoing crisis. Doctors who are already practicing don't want more seats to be added to medical colleges. They're saying that the government wants to increase competition in their practice. And the Union of Doctors says that the protests are just the beginning. Almost 1,600 doctors didn't show up to work yesterday. Now South Korea's President Yoon Suk-yeol has stepped in. He has urged the doctors to perform their duty and cater to their patients.
Trainee doctors, who are the leaders of the current South Korean medical field, and medical students, who are the leaders of the future medical field, must not take a collective action holding people's lives and health hostages. Protecting people's lives and health is the reason the government exists, and it is the most basic constitutional duty. Therefore, the government has a duty to efficiently manage medical resources to protect people's lives and health.
South Korea has a highly privatized healthcare system. Reports say that over 90% of all hospitals are private. But with South Korea's aging population, people are worried about the ongoing doctor strike.
I found out my daughter has torticollis, so we came here for surgery. If the doctors go on strike, my daughter's surgery might be delayed and the treatment period might become longer, so I'm very worried about that. I hope the situation will be well resolved.
As a person of this country and a patient, I feel like the doctors are using sick people as an excuse. I hope doctors and the government find some compromise and quickly return to their posts so that patients don't miss their treatment.
Doctors and medical students held a meeting in Seoul to discuss their next plan. They say that they will not stop protesting until the government pulls the plug on the plan to induct more doctors. Meanwhile, the South Korean government has urged the doctors to return to work and not jeopardize the lives of patients.
Now picture this. You're in South Africa's Cape Town, admiring its stunning landscapes and soaking it all in, and suddenly that Zen state of yours is taken away by an extremely foul stench. And if you're imagining it, it's actually real. An unimaginable stench has taken hold of the entire city, forcing people to stay indoors. And the authorities have checked all possible sources, from sewage pipes to dumping grounds, but found nothing, absolutely nothing, until they reached a ship at its port. Our next report explains.
South Africa's Cape Town is one of the best places to visit in the world. From the clear blue water of the Table Bay to the flat-topped Table Mountain, everything seems just perfect. Its picturesque natural setting is a treat for sore eyes. But not for your nose. Yes, you heard that right. The serene city is facing a stinky dilemma. A nauseating smell has taken over, which has forced its residents to remain locked inside their homes. The enveloping foul stench has currently made Cape Town practically unlivable. Some are calling it the worst stench they've ever come across in their life. Some say it felt like a sewage pipe burst. The others said it felt like someone pooped on their bed. It caused a panic-like situation and swung the authorities into action. They struggled to find out what had turned the city into a smelly gas chamber. They inspected every sewage pipe and checked for leakages and other issues, but found nothing, until they reached a city port and found the death ship. The rotten smell was traced back to a Kuwaiti ship transporting cattle. The ship travelling to Iraq docked at the Cape Town port to feed the livestock. There were about 19,000 cows on board. That's a whole lot of mooing and pooping in one place. Just imagine the amount of urine and feces those cattle were producing in one single day. And they've been travelling for nearly 2.5 weeks. It made people wonder how the ship's captain and crew were able to tolerate the smell. Soon, animal welfare groups raised concerns. They criticized the appalling conditions of the livestock on the ship. It triggered conversations on social media, with users questioning the way the animals are transported. The National Council of the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, or the NSPCA, immediately sent a vet to check on the animals. They said the stench on board is unimaginable, yet the animals face this every single day. The vet found 3 dead cattle and euthanized 5 who were in a very bad condition. Animal welfare organizations have been campaigning against this for years. The trade causes pain, suffering and distress to the animals on board. In 2023, New Zealand became the first country to ban the export of animals by sea. The ban applied to cattle, sheep, deer and goats for slaughter. New Zealand was joined by countries like Brazil, Great Britain and Australia. However, Brazil's ban was clearly short-lived, as this stinky ship was traveling from Brazil.
That's all that we have time for today. We certainly thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. From impeachments to inauguration.